Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Going to my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. There is an early slate, but I am not going to be playing that. Just not too interested in it, especially because it's only 4 games, I believe. So just going to be focusing on the main slate. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. We reached over 1,200, so thank you guys very much. I appreciate all the support. And speaking of support, if you want to support this channel even more, you can hit the link in the description below, and it will take you to my Patreon. Now, that comes with some extra content as well. It comes with my complete data sheet that I put together, my projections, my daily write-ups, and my Slack chat where you can ask me questions all day or just hang out and have fun, which is pretty much what we do. But I do answer questions, some serious questions if you have any. And it's just fun to be in there watching the games and whatnot. But yeah, so if you hit the link in the description below, it'll take you to my Patreon, and this is what it looks like. We got over 75 members, so you can just choose whatever the heck you want. And yeah, and NFL's coming out soon too, so very excited for NFL. We got the All Access for $20, which is actually what most of our members have actually done. And if you want an example, because you probably want to know what you'd be getting into, just disclaimer: I'm not a lineup provider. I don't give out lineups, so if that's what you're planning on signing up for, you're in the wrong place, because I don't do lineups. But I give you every single tool you need to help you be able to put together a lineup. So you get this cheat sheet, obviously, which I think you guys really like a lot, and I use it myself. So, but this is what I use to put together my cheat sheet, my entire data sheet. So if we go to the pitchers tab, this is just an example. So it's got everything you need here, and it's pretty much to help you not have to have 30 tabs open at one spot. It's got literally every single thing you should need for an entire slate on here. So for the pitchers, we got their salary, what hand they are, their pitchers, overall pitching stats for this season, their splits versus lefties, splits versus righties. And just by the way, look at Garrett Cole's strikeout rate versus lefties. That's insane at 40%. But anyway, yeah, splits versus righties, Vegas, when that comes out, I do weigh my projections on Vegas and batting order and Vegas for the hitters as well, and just some other stuff too. So, yeah, I like it a lot. What time the game's starting, the opponent, overall matchup info, the opponent splits versus lefties, opponent splits versus righties, what time the game starts. We got park factors on there and projections. So that's what I use every single day to make my cheat sheet. So I try to not put as many numbers in the cheat sheet because I know a lot of you really don't care about that, and you're just kind of here for a cheat sheet, which I understand. I used to be that way too until I started doing this and really got deep into the analytical parts of baseball, and I really enjoyed putting this together for you guys. But if you do want a more in-depth breakdown of why I like these guys, because maybe it makes you feel a bit more comfortable having the numbers to back it up, it's all right here, and it's color-coded and nice and easy to use. So anyway, enough plugging in commercial time. Let's get into this slate. So for Garrett Cole at 12,000, he's the top spend up on the slate in my opinion. I know Mike Clevenger's there too versus Kansas City, but I'm gonna prefer using with Garrett Cole. He's just been overpowering people and dominant in his recent starts and really just all year. He's got a massive 38% K rate, and if we just look at his numbers, let's just take back a look at the pitching sheet really quick. He's got a 3.03 ERA, which I don't really use ERA, but I do like using xFIP. And his xFIP is elite, 2.57. I know his numbers are right there with Clevenger, but Clevenger has a much smaller sample size this season as he was on the IL for quite a while. So Cole's sample size is pretty much the entire season, and his numbers are amazing. 37% K rate. He doesn't walk a ton of guys at 6%. He doesn't give up any hard contact whatsoever at 35%. I believe that's the second lowest on the entire slate. And yeah, he gives up a little bit of power to lefties, as you can see with the 185 ISO, but his K rate's insane at 40%, and he's great versus righties too. So I think this is a great spot for him, especially versus the Cardinals, who we like to use righties against. I know Urquidy just got 20 points versus them, and Garrett Cole is a much better pitcher. He's just one of the best pitchers in the league. And I do think there's enough value today to get to Garrett Cole as our ace. So he's gonna be my preferred spend up option. He's definitely someone I'm gonna be playing in cash and GPPs most likely. All right, so let's get into SP2. So SP2 is ugly. It's not a position I'm looking forward to having to decide between, but as of right now, I'm liking Steven Matz at 6,900. It's SP2 is very gross on this slate, like I said, but I do like the matchup for Matz more than I like Matz himself as a pitcher. So this is pretty much just a man, my hair's kind of Yeah. Anyway, not important. But yeah. So Pittsburgh is second to last in ISO versus lefties, last in WOBA, and last in WRC plus to lefties. So everything's saying the matchup is good. I know Matt's ended up going to the bullpen, but it's looking like he's going to get the start. And if we can get 5 solid innings out of him, I'd be pretty happy. I mean, they don't strike out a ton, which is the only thing, but I think we can have a solid game here. And he's cheap enough to pair with Cole. Now, I might have a cheaper option I land on tomorrow that ends up being really cheap, and maybe I can punt with Cole. I'll put that in the updates on Patreon, but as of right now, I'm liking Steven Matz' value. And then I also don't mind Homer Bailey at 6,700. He got absolutely hammered last start, but he is a sizable favorite and pitching in pitcher-friendly ballpark in Oakland versus a team who loves to strike out. Urquidy got 34 points versus the same Texas team, and I know, I mean, that doesn't mean anything for Bailey. I know he did get hammered, but that was versus Houston, and I think this is a whole different kind of beast facing the Texas Rangers. And they don't have Gallo either, which is a plus for Bailey because he struggles with lefty power. So Homer Bailey's looking like a nice option as well, and he's a pretty heavy favorite. And then at catcher, we got Jason Castro at 4,200. Twins were a pretty good stack last night. Cruz went deep. Max Kepler went deep. Blanco had a decent game. And I don't think Rosario did much, but yeah, other than that, the Twins they did all right. I mean, they didn't go off or anything like the Red Sox did. I mean, Mookie Betts went absolutely ham, and JD as well. But that's not important right now. I should probably stop talking about it. Jason Castro, though, 4,200. Twins lefties are one of the top stacks of the night versus Nova, who really struggles with left-handed bats, so he makes sense if we're going to be snacking up the Twins, which I plan on having a lineup with the Twins. And then Brian McCann, 3,700. He's actually someone I added on my cheat sheet later in the day because Mike Zunino got scratched, and I was able to afford a more expensive catcher, so I put McCann in a friendly matchup. I can't remember exactly who it was actually at the moment, but it was a good matchup versus a righty who struggles with lefties. I just can't remember him off the top of my head, but we're in the same spot here. Eflin is an easy guy to break down where we went the lefties versus him, as he's been pretty tough on righties. I don't know if you guys remember that last start. Might not have been the last start, but it was the start versus the Dodgers. The lefties absolutely murdered him. Although I will say the Braves don't have the kind of lefties that the Dodgers do, but I do like the spot for McCann, who hits righties pretty well. And then another McCann, James McCann at 3,900. I feel like I'm losing my voice. So, had to just ignore my voice if it sounds really scratchy. And James McCann, though, at 3,900. He's got a couple McCanns in the catcher position today, but both are in pretty good spots. James has always been very solid versus left-handed pitching, so I don't mind going with him. And I will say, Martin Perez is really overpriced on this slate. I think he's 8,900, and there's no reason I'm going to be playing that. And at first base, we got Free Money Freddie. I forget his nickname. What is it? Free Money Freeman or something. But anyway, 5,200. We just went over why we like the lefties versus Eflin, and Freddie is elite versus righties. What is it? Free Money Freddie? Yeah, something like that. And then we got Carlos Santana and Bowers, 2 first basemen from the Tribe on the cheat sheet here. I really like their matchup versus Sparkman, who really struggles with lefties. This is a much better matchup for them tonight than it was for Junis, and they still had a really good game versus Junis, and the bullpen is bad as well. But I know Santana got scratched, which sucked for my Indian stacks because I ended up having to pivot to Jose Abreu, who was the same price, and he got absolutely nothing. I still had a good night, but it would probably I would assume Santana would have had a pretty good night, so kind of sucked. But I like going back to the well here. Hopefully he's back in the lineup. If not, I like punting with Jake Bowers, who's just way too cheap. Then we also have Joey Votto at 3,900. Chi-Chi's been pretty awful versus lefties this season, and we are in a hitter-friendly ballpark at Great American. So a lot of runs could be scored here. Chi-Chi's not very good, especially versus lefties, so this makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of good cheap lefties on the Cincinnati Reds. And then second base, Jason Kipnis. He's pretty much always my top option when we're facing a righty because DraftKings just hates Kipnis for some reason. They continue to price him at low 3K, and he's batting cleanup when he's going versus righties. And this Indians offense is good. I was trashing them earlier in the season as an Indians fan. It was pathetic, but they really came alive, and we're only, 2 games back from the Twins. So, I mean, they're fighting. I mean, there's a reason to be playing hard here. So, I do like the Indians quite a bit again, and yeah, to me, it's just a free square at 3,600 lefty cleanup versus Sparkman, so it just makes a lot of sense there. And then Scooter Gennett, 3,300. If we need even more value, I really prefer to get up to Kipnis, but he's a really cheap lefty versus Chi-Chi. And then Robinson Cano, 3,700. Looks like I'm going to be sitting down in second base today, and while this is an exciting matchup versus Trevor Williams, it's not a bad one either, per se, so I don't mind going with him, but I'd really recommend getting to Kipnis. And then at third base, we got J-Ram, 4,600. He's the guy I played last night as well. In all my lineups, actually, I was 100% J-Ram, 100% Lindor, 100% Kipnis. So I am glad that ended up working out. Sometimes the Indians like to screw me, but they decided not to last night, so I thank them. Hopefully this isn't the time where they do that, but everything's lining up here. It's a good matchup. They're pretty affordable. Most of the lineup is, outside of Lindor, really. And J-Ram is playing like his MVP contending self recently. Speaking of last year, where he was in the MVP race. But yeah, his last few games, he scored 19, 28, 13, 2, 17, 19. Then a few games before that, this recent run, he had a couple games in the teens and 20s as well. So he's heating up, and he's a streaky guy. When he gets hot, he gets hot. He did that last year, although he was hot for a really long period of time. But when he's cold, he gets cold, as evident this season. He's finally starting to warm up, though, and I don't want to miss out on getting J-Ram below 5K, because I do think 5K is coming soon. So I am going to hop on and just enjoy the ride that it's been the past few games. I feel like I've been playing him every day, but it's been working. So I'm going to continue doing that. And again, Sparkman sucks versus lefty, so this makes a ton of sense here. Then Matt Chapman, 4,500. I do like the A's righties here quite a bit versus the reverse splits righty and Sampson. I believe they have one of the higher implied run totals of the slate, and it just makes a lot of sense there, as they're pretty much all righties with power versus righties. And Sampson gives up power to righties, so this makes a ton of sense. And then I didn't list anyone else because I'm most likely playing J-Ram, but I did want to give Chapman as a secondary option. And then at shortstop, we got Frankie Lindor, 5,300, another guy I've been playing a lot. They finally put him above 5K at 5,300, but it's where his price belongs. He's one of the best players in the league, but he's an elite play in all formats, leading off for the Tribe versus a righty, I should say. I tell you guys I do this once a video, but at least they catch it. Versus a righty. I think I meant to say a lefty that sucks versus righties, but you guys get the point. And he's been on fire, just like J-Ram, so do like him quite a bit. And then I like Jorge Polanco for our twin stacks. He's a much better hitter versus righties, and Nova is awful versus lefties and can't strike them out to save his life. I believe it's only at 14%, which actually is coming up a little bit. I believe earlier in the season it was at like 9%, so maybe get a little bit better, but that's still very, very below average. He just gave up a pretty decently high ISO to lefties, so the Twins are one of my top stacks. Twins are just great. They mash lefties, they mash righties. There's nothing you can do versus them. You just got to hope they don't just tee off versus you. You have to hope they get a little cold if you're a pitcher. But as DFS players, I'm all about playing the Twins every night, so love the Twins. And then also Gene Segura at 4K. He's a cheaper option. He's been excellent versus lefties this season. He's got a massive 333 ISO versus lefties, so he makes a lot of sense if you want to play him. And then in the high-end outfield, we got Mike Trout at 5,700. So Brooks is worse versus lefties, but he's not any good versus righties either. And I'm all for stacking up the Angels outfield again. In cash today, I just went Trout, Ohtani, Upton, and actually Upton just homered a little bit ago, so that was very nice. But yeah, I'm all about the Angels again. I will say they didn't disappoint. I was thinking where I recorded and they only had 4 runs 2 nights ago, but then the game ended like 4:30 in the morning and they ended up scoring 10 runs, so that wasn't too bad. But yeah, Max Kepler though, next guy up on the list, 5,100. All lefties from the Twins are in play. Just the problem is they got a price hike, especially the outfield here. I think last night we got them in the 4K range. It was the high 4K range, but it was still affordable because we had our Urquidy at 5K. But yeah, it's going to be hard to afford all 3 of these guys, but they're an amazing spot, and Kepler is a favorite of mine. You guys know if you've been around this channel a long time, I play Kepler a ton. I probably play Kepler more than anyone does, and it's really worked out this season. And he had a great game last night, and he's a top play versus Nova in my opinion. Then Eddie Rosario, you can pretty much just copy and paste what I said, although I'm a bigger fan of Kepler, but Rosario is fantastic too. Then in the mid-range, Ohtani's not technically mid-range, but I didn't want to leave him off the sheet. He's a core play for me, actually, versus Brooks. I know we got a triple tonight. I don't know if he did anything after that. I haven't looked. I've been busy doing this. But at 4,800, core play versus Brooks. Brooks is getting pounded from the left side of the plate, and Ohtani owns a 253 ISO, 2 righties this season. And that bullpen is bad too, so I just like using all these Angels again. I wouldn't rule out going Trout, Ohtani, and Upton and Cash again, which I've done. I feel like the past 2 nights, so I wouldn't mind doing it again. And we have Ryan Braun at 4,500. Braun's always a guy I like facing off versus lefties with this 255 ISO versus them. Lester is allowing power to righties this season as well with a 200 ISO. And then David Dahl round this out in the mid-range, 4,300. I really like the spot for Dahl, not versus Dahl. I really like the spot for Dahl facing off versus Desclafani, who really struggles with left-handed bats. It's not Coors Field, but Great American Ballpark is a nice place to hit as well, so we do get these Rockies at a nice discount. And I will say, I do like David Dahl, and I also like Charlie Blackmon, but he just didn't make the cut over guys like Kepler and Rosario, but I do think Blackmon is in play as well. And then we are in the cheap outfield, the value outfield, and I got Chris Davis, 3,400. Is he ever going to get a home run again? I don't know, maybe, hopefully. But this could be it versus Samson. It's a reverse splits righty, serving up power to righties. Chris Davis in his career has always been better versus righties. This season, that's not correct, as he's been better versus lefties, but I'm going to side with the career numbers here that he smashes righties. And I do think this is a pretty good spot for, hopefully, him breaking out for a home run. And then Jake Bauers at 3,300. We already went over him. Michael Brantley at 4,300. I broke my own rule. I said rule of law here on this channel is if he's in the 4K range facing a righty, he's on the sheet. And I just didn't put him on the sheet versus Flaherty because I do respect him as a pitcher. But Brantley proved me wrong. He got a home run. So I apologize to Mr. Brantley and everyone on here. But I'm not going to make that same mistake again. And this is a pretty good matchup for Brantley at 4,300. And Justin Upton at 3,900. Just cheap part of the Angel stack. He just homered a little bit ago, and he's hitting righties extremely well this season, so he makes quite a bit of sense. And then Jesse Winker at 4K, just cheap Cincy lefty versus Chi-Chi. And if we go to some of the core plays and top stacks, I got Garrett Cole 12,000. I'm really looking to spend up for him. I do think we have enough value options to get it done, especially with guys like Kipnis, as I also have his core play at 3,600. JRM at 4,600 as well. He's on fire. Then Shohei Ohtani at 4,800 is also a core play for me, as he's my favorite Angels player. Although, I mean, Trout's right up there too, but we get a little bit of savings. And then the top stacks for me are going to be the Indians. I know you're probably surprised. I always have the Indians, but hey, they're in a great spot versus Sparkman and that bad bullpen. The Twins, specifically the lefties here, but don't leave out Nelson Cruz. He is on fire, absolutely on fire. I don't even know how many home runs he has in the past few games, but it's a lot. And then the Angels, the A's, and the Cincy lefties round that out. And I'll fill out the rest for Patreon members. I'll have my write-up, projections, and all that as well. So anyway, that's all I got for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPinell16. If you're playing UFC, I'd recommend checking out the UFC videos we put up. We had a podcast, and we had a Andrews cheat sheet breakdown. So yeah, that's it. I wish you guys the best of luck. I feel like this was a pretty long video, so if you hung out till the end, I applaud you. And yeah, so I wish you guys the best of luck tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video, which will actually be tomorrow for NASCAR.